I'm Michael Clarke.
And I'm Cherie Humel, and we're from Clarke and Humel Property in Manly. Well, what we felt is that there was an opening for somebody who is delivering a higher level of service in the real estate market. So when Michael and I were first working on open homes, we felt that the homes weren't being explained properly. So quite often what was happening is that, somebody just stand on the front door and take names and numbers. But we felt that there was a whole other level of service that we could deliver by explaining the house, by using our architectural knowledge to really create that potential of that home.
We also felt that there was almost a complacency that had crept in, and we thought that if we broke down each and every part of the sale process, from the original prospecting through to the settlement and then past client servicing, that if we looked at that and analysed it, that surely there would be a better way. And what we started to do with our own business inside somebody else's business kind of evolved into wanting to do it for ourselves.
So we really utilise both of our skill sets. So with my background in architecture, I talk about how the home can be best presented and what's the potential that we'll be selling to the buyers. And then of course, Michael's background is in advertising, so he talks about the marketing and how we can best market the home.
It's very much a team-based approach rather than one or the other of us having a conversation. We're both involved in it, everything from the architectural design through to the marketing, promotion and strategy.
Well, so every home's different and every person's situation is different, and they're after different things. So whether that's the timing or whether that's, as I said, the presentation, whether it's a one-bedroom apartment or a multi-million-dollar home, there's a specific tailored approach to each and every one of those homes that we're selling.
And also whether it's a $160,000 studio apartment or a $10 million home, for that vendor in that point in time, it's just as important to them. So each and every person that we deal with, it's one of the central points of their life at that time. So we want to make sure that each of them feels like they're being well taken care of and getting the best advice.
So before we started Clarke and Humel, there was a lot of planning with respect to the finances, the way we wanted ourselves to look, who our clientele was, and pitching ourselves in that marketplace. So there was a lot of planning, so I would suggest to anybody who was looking to do it themselves, don't start on a wing and a prayer just because you don't like the agency that you're with. We left on positive note and for positive circumstances, and there was a lot of planning, 4 years in the making, before we launched our agency and before we opened the doors.
So I think the second thing is that we really saw that there was an opening in the market. So yes, it was competitive, but we felt that there were a lot of good real estate agents doing a good job, but it was a lot of the same old, and we felt that it could be done a little bit differently. And so because we saw that opening, that was the second big thing for us. Right? So if there's no real opening in the market, or there's everything that's been covered, then I'd think twice about it again.
So probably the third thing that we'd offer as a piece of advice would be that to go in with a partnership and understand where your strengths are, and also understand there's going to be times when there's aspects that you may not want to do. But the way Michael and I worked is, of course, I let him sell unfettered, list and sell, and that's all he was considering, whilst I was doing everything else, and that was to do with the aspects of the marketing, the business, how the financials were being run, and HR, the staff. Like, that's really important to have good people around you and have them be happy with what they're doing and focus on their strengths as well. I grew up here in Manly and was raised around Fairy Bower area. So a lot of the locals I know, and thankfully they like and trust us.
I was from Orange, had no bloody clue whatsoever about the area when I first started, and so I had to get to know it from scratch. And so in that sense, that helped me because I was viewing it from an outsider's perspective. What is so good about this area?
Well, growing up, my father was an architect and developer. For a short stint, he actually did have a real estate office, and I just followed in the same suit, so I absolutely loved the people and properties. Initially, I didn't want anything to do with being a real estate agent. I felt that they were a little bit, that they seemed to be tricky and schemy. But after having been a successful architect, I realised I was far too removed from the people aspect of things. So I just love bringing those two parts together, the people and property, and selling houses.
Well, the thing about it from my perspective was that because I didn't know the area, I mean, I knew the beach, we've been coming down to Manly from my childhood, but the beautiful thing about Cherie being here since birth was that I could ask, well, look, what is leasehold? Is Eastern Hill better than Western Hill, or are they the same? What are the quirks? What are the architectural things in this particular area that I'd have no concept about? And that was brilliant to be able to workshop all the bits and pieces in relation to the area with somebody that had hyper-local knowledge.
Well, we broke down every aspect of the business. So because my background was project management, it was important for us to understand what good customer service was from start to finish. But one of the things we found there was a great amount of enjoyment with was going to the listing presentation together and then going home and workshopping what worked, what didn't work, what was a clanger, what was a real positive. So with that we had a great deal of exploration, but also we developed a real strength in our presentation with breaking it down and having one another to bounce ideas off.
And it's also great because the two of us are such different people that we'd come from a different perspective. I might walk out of a listing presentation with Cherie thinking, yeah, we've nailed it, and Cherie go, God, that was a clanger. And, and vice versa. It'd be, it was brilliant to have two very different people workshopping the same circumstance, and I think that really helped. But look, I think the other point that I'd make is that with Cherie and I, it's a genuine team. So Cherie can list and sell as well as I could list and sell, but we made a decision at the very beginning that Cherie would shelter me from a whole range of all the back end things and shelve the sales part for a bit, and that allowed me to do what I was doing, and yet we'd still come together for the listing and selling and things like that. So in that sense, I think that was one of the biggest things that really supercharged us from the outset, because we could both be focusing on different areas, even though the two of us were equally capable of doing both.